Hello everyone, I am Rahul Sachdeva, working as a senior program specialist at the Water and Environment Vertical at the National Institute of Urban Affairs. Today with me is my colleague Dr. Victor Shinde, who heads the Water and Environment Vertical here at NIUA. What role does water play in the transformative journey of India as we talk about the Viksit Bharat 2047? So we are here to discuss about water. And maybe I would start our conversation with asking Victor a question that why do you think water plays such an important role? You know, what role water plays in this entire narrative of Viksit Bharat 2047?
Yeah, thank you very much, Rahul. I think that's a great question. First of all, in many of the events that I go, this question always comes up. So why is the Indian government focusing so much on water management? The kind of investments that we have made in the water sector. For example, the Amrut program. It's almost a $37 billion program, right? It's the largest urban water mission in the world, right? And I think there's a very logical reason why India is actually focusing on water. It's because if you look at the countries that have made the transition, from a developing nation to a developed nation, whether it was Singapore in the 1960s, 70s, or Korea, or to some extent Japan in the early 50s, 60s, they've always looked or they've always addressed the water story first. Okay, because and there's a logic to it as well, because if you address the water story, you're also addressing many other issues. Like water is directly related to food security, and water security is directly related to energy security. It also has an impact on health, right? So just addressing the water situation also helps us address all these other issues as well, right? And I think that is one of the reasons, when we talk about Viksit Bharat, the first step, I would say one of the first steps to achieving that vision of Viksit Bharat would be for us to get our water story correct, right? And that's why it's not very surprising that the government has a lot of focus. I think not just from the urban perspective. There's also the Jal Jeevan mission, from the from the rural perspective, and there are close to some 16 or 17 schemes that the government has announced to strengthen the water situation as such, right? So yeah, I think that is where the water story is really important. But then Rahul, see, we've been working in this water domain. You and I, we've been here working together for the last 6 years. You're leading some projects, etc. So with this context in mind, about getting our water story right, where do you think currently, and especially from the urban context, where do you think the challenges are? What do you think are the biggest challenges that our cities today face? And these are the issues that we must address in our cities.
And with the change in lifestyle, in development, so-called the water demand also increases. We have seen that, this demand is consistently increasing with the population, and also because there is competing, in terms of the water use, agriculture, then industries, and then the domestic water demand. So overall, if we see, as we develop, the overall demand of water is also increasing. Now, when we specifically talk about cities, I think the more of the challenge is also about the water availability. How we can bring water close to the cities. Right. As you know, the cities have been developing on the banks of the river. The water is there. But now what's happening is because of the rapidly growing demand, we are more dependent on groundwater. Those levels are going down, as well as the surface waters are becoming more and more contaminated. So I think the more issue is not about the availability of the water, but where the water is available. So if you see cities like big cities like Bangalore, that withdraws water from 130 kilometers away. Cities like Hyderabad, 100 kilometers away. Even smaller cities like Solapur, they get their water from a dam 80-85 kilometers away. So it's about from where the water needs to be procured and to be provided to the cities. And also, we see that because of the increase of the population, the demand is ever increasing. And I think that's one of the key challenges, that how we can plug this demand, because the water is limited, but it's the availability is the key issue. So one of the challenges that how we address this demand, and also I see that traditionally, we have been looking water management only from a supply perspective. But I think as we move ahead, maybe we also have to think from a demand management perspective.
Absolutely.
What happens is that we use water, and then by a large part of that water gets converted into a wastewater, and then it's discharged back into the system. I think there is a great potential of, using this water again back and putting into the system, at least for non-potable purposes.
To begin with.
Because as we move ahead, we cannot just rely on your freshwater sources. We have to look into alternative sources of water. And I think this treated use water is one such avenue where I think that, a lot of work that needs to be done into it. India today generates 72,000 million liters of wastewater. If we are able to treat that entire volume, just imagine 72,000 million liters of water is available on a daily basis, at least to tap our non-potable water demand, which we are not able to do right now. So there's a great potential. But along with this, there's another challenge which emerges is people's acceptability to use this treated water. So I think there's a lot of stigma attached that when we use water, it has to be pure. And I think it will take some time for India to change its narrative and increase the adaptability towards the treated water aspect. And if we are able to use that, then definitely if we are able to counter or address this water demand to a great extent. But we also need to understand then from where does this challenge stems in. So I think it's the people's the lack of trust in the quality of the water, even if it is treated and provided to them. So I think that's where one of the key challenges that how we can change that narrative with people. One such initiative I would like to mention here is that the government of Odisha, when they launched their scheme of drink from tap water,
you and I were
working together on that. And earlier people had a lot of apprehension in terms of the water quality, that whether we can take this water directly from tap and we can drink it. But government invested a lot of their effort and resources in doing this massive campaign called Pure for Sure campaign, in which they reached out to the people and then they made them understand the merit of the scheme, and then and build their confidence that this water is drinkable. And I'm sure you remember when we were doing this evaluation of the scheme, we ourselves had gone to one such water tap and we have directly drank that water from there in presence of various officials from a fountain. So I think that would has instilled a lot of confidence, and now people are using that water very freely. So I think India is doing a lot of effort in that, but there are this few of these challenges that as we move ahead we will have to look into.
Absolutely. In fact, this just reminds me that of a study that I read recently. So in Hyderabad, so people were asked whether they would like to use treated wastewater for their consumption.
Absolutely.
And resoundingly, a number of people, a majority of the people actually said that they are willing to use treated water, but they're actually not very confident of the quality. Right? So this Pure for Sure thing that you just talked about, right? That IEC campaign, of course, first maintaining the quality of treated use water, and then running a very proper IEC campaign, to kind of, improve the acceptability of that. So I think that will be really critical. So even just to I didn't. Pick on what you just said. So there are also a lot of examples from from a global perspective, where I think India can learn from.
Absolutely.
On this treated wastewater thing. So Singapore. Now Singapore is a great example. They have this thing called NIUA water, and it's the reused water. That they are very famous for. So I once had the privilege of visiting the Public Utility Board in Singapore, and then I asked them, how did you go about this whole system? Right? And one of the things that they told me, which resounds very much with what you are saying, is that they were not able to roll out the program in one go. Okay. So even before they rolled out this, there was a dedicated IEC campaign for 2-3 years before that. So that the people are prepared to embrace this change. Right? So involving consumers, involving people, that communication with people, only then they were able to kind of roll it out. Right?
Sure.
So I think that point is really accurate. That we have to make. We have to make water management a people's movement, and one of the biggest challenges is that it's only it's not just, I guess, not just India. I have seen examples from across the world as well. Just to cite one, for instance, Australia is one of the renowned leaders, in water management. Okay, so but that whole situation changed because of this great millennium drought that they had in the 1990s. Right? So before that, their per capita demand was somewhere around 500, 600 LPCD. And after that phase, they brought it down to 110. Right? Okay, again, then if you study that carefully, you'll see, it is not only, of course, technical measures that they use, but there was also a very focused IIC campaign, targeting different stakeholders. So we're looking at not just the citizen groups, but the governments, residential colonies, all these people, all these categories of stakeholders were targeted very with a very focused manner, and that's when they were able to kind of bring it down. Right? Singapore example, I already told you.
Yeah.
Likewise, sometime back when we were preparing the master plan for Delhi, we visited Los Angeles. Okay, just to have interactions with them and understand how they are approaching the planning paradigm.
Yeah.
And what we found out that the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, the rainfall in Los Angeles is around 120, 130 millimeters, right? But they are investing big time in rainwater harvesting, right?
Okay.
So, even though the resource is scarce, so they have just invested so much in it, which just shows that, water is such a precious resource. And in order to harness that resource, there are so many, so much of effort that is being taken, right? And a very important part of the LA program is, again, the engagement with communities, right?
Yeah.
It's almost on a weekly or a monthly basis that they engage with communities, ask for their perceptions. So it's more of a collaborative way, in terms of how they kind of manage.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's about what the other countries are doing. Right? But I think there's a lot of interesting things that India is also doing, right?
Yeah.
And as part of our work over the last 7 or 8 years, there are some interesting examples that we have, I would say, set for the rest of the world as well. Some interesting things.
Absolutely. One such initiative that I would like to discuss is our work, what we do with the National Mission for Clean Ganga.
Yeah.
So they work on rejuvenating Ganga River within India. So we have been working with them since 2019. So the thing is that, as I mentioned earlier, the cities have been flourishing along the banks of the river. They have been, relying on the water from the rivers. But what has happened that, whenever now we talk about the health of the rivers, the response has always been in terms of the pollution abatement of the rivers, and only looking river in silo, but not looking into the entire ecosystem of rivers, of your water bodies, wetlands, natural drains. So it was only looked into silo. So what we have done is that understanding this, the importance of this entire ecosystem, because ultimately, if we now talk about water, so rivers and its ecosystem all put together is the major source of water. If we talk specifically about at least the river cities as such.
Absolutely.
So in that regard, what we did is that we created a unique framework called an urban river management plan framework, which guides cities that how they can maintain the health of this entire ecosystem. And not only, again, from the perspective of only the environment part of it, that looking to reduce the pollution part of it, but also looking into that how to bring about a connection with people.
Right.
How people associate themselves with water, and again, in the sense, what is their responsibility, what they can do towards this entire initiative, and also looking into the economic aspect part of it, because if you assign some economic value to it, it gets a wider acceptance in that sense. So looking into this broad 3 now verticals of economic, social, and environment, we created this framework in which, if we now look into specifically the environment part of it, a few of the objectives what this framework looks is about how to maintain the health of the floodplain of the rivers, so that the quality is maintained. Pollution abatement is another part, which anyways is talked about earlier also. Very interestingly, we now look into the water bodies and wetlands, rejuvenation of water bodies and wetlands, because they are somehow intrinsically connected with the river. So how their rejuvenation measures can again, help cities in bringing about that transformative change. Riparian buffers along river, how it can help in cities, again, improve the health of the rivers and improving the microclimate of the cities. What role a city can play, giving a good quality return flow back to the river. So all these aspects, kind of comprises of environment component, and looking into the social component is that how we can engage citizens in this entire aspect of urban river management.
Absolutely.
And from an economic standpoint, we see that how city can leverage on the economic potential of the river or the water bodies, which could vary from a city to city.
Absolutely.
So this framework kind of, builds a narrative and at least gives a direction to a city that what kind of action needs to be taken. But another thing is that it's a very emerging paradigm. It's a new concept and it needs to be communicated. And people like cities are new to this concept, so their capacities need to build. And whatever the good work that they are doing already, maybe cities need to learn from each other. They are doing in bits and pieces, but they need to learn from each other. So we have created a unique platform again called a River Cities Alliance. It's a platform of 140 plus river cities as on today, but we are increasing. We are adding more cities, and this platform alliance provides a platform for cities to learn from each other. The kind of innovative, the transformative work that they are doing on ground, how they can learn from each other and adapt it. So I think that's a very innovative piece of work that now we are doing with the National Mission for Clean Ganga. Another example I would like to mention here is when we now talk about water and its management in the cities. I think you would agree that many cities suffer a lot because of the lack of data. Because if you need to have a decision making, you need to have a plan. And plan requires data. And we have more than often seen that data in its required format is not available. Some time back, if you remember, we had written a white paper on integrated urban water management. Why the concept of the philosophy of IUWM is not being able to be adapted at a city level. And one of the key challenge that emerged was the lack of data. So to address this bit with UNESCO New Delhi, we had done an initiative in which we created a comprehensive data set on various aspects of water and its management for the city of Gwalior. And we made the data set and then converted into a dashboard. So the objective of this data set is that the decision makers can overlay various aspects related to water management, be it water supply, be it sewerage, be it drains, household connections, how we can overlay all these layers of data which can help in a decision making if they have to plan for water related interventions in their city. So I think this is another bit initiative which is transformative in many ways, and ministry is showing a lot of interest that if we can scale this initiative to other cities in India. So,
exactly. So I mean, I think this is a very unique example. I think this is perhaps the first time that was attempted in India.
Absolutely.
And I think at least if the larger cities in India can adopt this model, where you have all water related information in one place, and then you're able to take decisions on very critical decision points, like, okay, where should I reuse my treated wastewater?
Absolutely.
Or if I have excess flood water coming into the city, where do I direct it to? Or where are the groundwater recharge zones? So I think this is a fantastic kind of an example. There's just one more example, because I talked about groundwater. An interesting thing that we are doing with the Amrut program. Okay, this is on the shallow aquifer management, right? So now, typically, what happens that in cities, there is a tendency to go more deeper and deeper in search of water. Right?
Absolutely.
But there is some logic to it, because the water, as you go deeper, you get more pure water. There's less need for filtration, treatment, so on and so forth. But I think the biggest problem with deeper aquifers is that they take years to recharge. Sometimes even thousands of years to recharge. So I think that's not a sustainable way if we are exploiting our confined aquifers. So one of the things that we proposed to the Amrut program was, why don't we make a switch from the deeper aquifers to the shallow aquifers, right? Because shallow aquifers' advantage is that you would be able to recharge them over every monsoon cycle. So you have enough water to be used on an annual basis, right? So this is a program that we are now currently doing with Amrut. So a pilot program was attempted in 10 cities. There were some fantastic results that came out of it, and now this is being scaled up to 75 cities, right? So I think in so many ways, there are attempts being made in India, to at least try and get our water story correct. While of course, we still have some way to go about it, but I think we're getting there. We're getting there slowly and steadily, right? But what is your view, about the future? So what are some things, maybe some final reflections, in terms of, okay, now are we ending on an optimistic note, or do you still think we are slightly at a pessimistic mode here?
I think India is making big strides ahead. I think when we are talking about the reuse of treated water, that has been adequately highlighted in our national scheme as such. So Amrut scheme talks about it at least mandates at a city level that they use cover 20% of their at least the domestic water demand by using the treated water, and at a state level aggregated industries to cater 50% of their water demand through the use of treated water again. So I think we are there. I think there's a lot of focus at the national level, and I see that, but when we move ahead, there are certain things that we should be cognizant of. As I mentioned earlier, we have to look into alternative sources of water. How we can look not only relying on fresh water, but how we can kind of build this water budget at a city level by looking into various means. And another important thing, as you mentioned, like people's connection, their involvement in this entire process, the way this entire Swachh Bharat mission, it become a massive movement, and the way people connected to it, that's why we were able to get the kind of progress at a national level. So I think in terms of water also, I think as we move ahead, we need to connect with people. People have to take responsibilities. We have to manage our water resources in a better way, manage our demand in a better way. And with that, I think we will be able to make much more strides at a rapid pace moving ahead. Maybe I would also like to hear from you on this as well.
No, I genuinely think this is a very exciting time for water in India. So I think a lot of the decisions that we take today are going to have long-lasting implications, right? And we are poised at a very interesting juncture because I genuinely think the intent is right. At a policy level, at a strategic level, the intent is in the right direction. It's now for us, to kind of take those incremental steps, take those delta steps to transform the intent into action. Right? And I think the next few years is going to see a lot of that action. And I personally am optimistic that our Indian cities, in the near future, we will achieve the state, of water security that we desire.